suspect arrested and charged in connection with a U.S. pipe bomb scare. Sri Lanka on the verge of political crisis after Prime Minister sacked and Parliament dissolved. And the government is confident traffic will gradually increase on Mega Bridge to Macau.
Good evening and welcome. A Florida man is under arrest accused of sending at least 14 mail bombs to prominent Democrats and supporters. The arrest caps an almost week-long nationwide search that spread fear of election season violence with little precedent in the United States. Alan Booknet reports.
In a remarkably fast-moving investigation that spanned from Florida to California, police charged 56-year-old Cesar Sayoc with 5 federal offenses that carry a maximum 58 years in prison. An amateur bodybuilder and former stripper, Sayoc has a long arrest record and once spent time on probation for a bomb threat charge. Sayoc was first registered as a Republican just ahead of the March 2016 Republican primary. He quickly identified himself as a Trump supporter and is seen here at a Trump rally. FBI Director Christopher Wray explains what led investigators to Sayoc.
They uncovered a latent fingerprint from one of the envelopes containing an IED that had been sent to Congresswoman Maxine Waters. We have confirmed this fingerprint is that of Cesar Sayoc. There is also a possible DNA connection between samples collected from pieces of 2 different IEDs.
While none of the mail bombs detonated, Wray says they were designed to.
Though we're still analyzing the devices in our laboratory, these are not hoax devices.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions said the attacks appear to be partisan.
This is utterly unacceptable. Political violence or the threat of violence is antithetical to our vigorous system of self-government.
Sayoc was arrested outside a store in Plantation, Florida, and a witness says it went without incident.
He actually had a look on his face from what I saw of him, more of like just a, okay, they got me. You know, like he gave up kind of a thing, like, I can't believe I did this.
Police also covered and removed a van at the scene of the arrest. The van was plastered with pro-Trump and anti-Democrat decals. Authorities are warning that there could still be more mail bombs in transit. Even as Sayoc was being charged, investigators intercepted a suspicious package in Sacramento, California. It was addressed to Democratic Senator Kamala Harris, and investigators believe it's linked to the case. No one was injured. Alan Booknet, TVB News.
Meanwhile, with just 10 days before the U.S. midterm elections, President Donald Trump and former President Barack Obama were out campaigning for their parties. While Obama slammed Republicans as liars, Trump criticized Democrats on illegal immigration. In a fiery speech in the state of Michigan, Obama called President Donald Trump a man who makes stuff up.
The president said he was going to pass a middle-class tax cut before the election. Congress isn't even in session before the election. Just made stuff up.
Obama continued to slam Trump in Wisconsin, where he also took to trashing all Republicans as liars.
I'm hoping you think it's wrong to hear people spend years, months, vilifying people, questioning their patriotism, calling them enemies of the people. But what we have not seen before, in our recent public life at least, is politicians just blatantly, repeatedly, baldly, shamelessly lying, calling up down, calling black white.
And the Democrats want to invite caravan after caravan of illegal aliens into our country. And they want to sign them up for free health care, free welfare, free education, and for the right to vote. They want to sign them for the right to vote. What's that all about?
Trump insists he's building his wall to stop illegal immigration and that many Democrats are unfairly against it just to spite him.
Many of these Democrats, almost all of them, including Schumer, including Crooked Hillary, many of these Democrats approved the wall in 2006.
Just the mention of Hillary Clinton's name sent Trump supporters in a chanting frenzy. Meantime, stricter voting rules now require Americans to provide street addresses. This poses a problem for typically Democrat voters living on Indian reservations.
The intent, I believe, was to hinder a lot of our potential voters at the state and federal level.
That is one of the biggest hurdles to get that physical address, is to get a place to give us a physical address and then go and get an ID with a physical address on it.
U.S. Homeland Security Chief Kirstjen Nielsen is asking Congress to support more infrastructure, manpower, and technology for the border wall with Mexico. This comes as Defense Secretary Jim Mattis authorized the use of troops at the border to stop a caravan of migrants heading towards the U.S.
Let me be clear. Walls work. That's not my opinion. It's not a tagline. It's not a political statement. It's a fact. We've seen the success of walls in El Paso, in Yuma, in San Diego, and in the past, right here in the El Centro sector. From our perspective, we fully intend to continue to tell those who come here that if you do not have a legal right to enter the United States, you will not be allowed in. If you sneak across our border, you will be apprehended and you will be returned.
Nielsen was visiting the first completed section of President Donald Trump's border wall in the El Centro sector. Officials say the Trump administration is considering deploying 800 to 1,000 troops at the border.
Sri Lanka could be headed for a constitutional crisis. This after the country's president suspended parliament and replaced the prime minister. The incoming prime minister is strongman Mahinda Rajapaksa, who also ruled Sri Lanka from 2005 to 2014. During that time, Tamil rebels were defeated, but Rajapaksa was accused of war crimes and a brutal crackdown on some media. Sri Lanka's constitution says the president has a right to appoint the person who he thinks has a majority in parliament. But a recent constitutional amendment makes it unclear who has the majority. The country's ousted prime minister says he has no intention of stepping down.
Locally now, the local port section of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge wasn't exactly packed today in the first weekend since it opened. Still, the government says it expects traffic will gradually increase as more permits for private cars are issued. Pinky Wong has more.
The Hong Kong port may not have been crowded today, but that doesn't mean interest in the bridge has waned.
This is a new bridge and I just like to tour around. This is more comfortable.
Travel agencies took the advantage of the bridge, organizing day tours to Hong Kong. And those who didn't come with the tour?
It's very happy. Price-wise, comfortable, and on time. Customs, immigration, everything was okay. Very good. I think in long term, this would be substitute ferries.
Even though the signs clearly stated that passengers should pay in Hong Kong dollars, bus companies have been accepting renminbi to avoid passengers crowding the bus stop and causing chaos, as most mainland travelers did not carry any Hong Kong dollars with them.
That's because there aren't any currency exchange outlets at the Hong Kong port, and octopus cards were sold out at the only convenience store there. In the first 3 days since its opening, roughly 2,000 to 2,500 vehicles used the bridge. Chief Secretary for Administration Matthew Cheung said the 5,000 bridge permits for Hong Kong private cars was to avoid affecting traffic in the area. Cheung said the government will adjust the limits accordingly after a period of time. Over in Macau, This Hong Kong couple said not a lot of people were on their bus today and their journey was smooth. But health inspectors at the Zhuhai Macau side of the bridge encountered their first case of fever yesterday when a 2-year-old boy was sent back to Macau. Pinky Wong, TVB News.
After admitting to a massive data breach this week, the city's de facto air carrier, Cathay Pacific, has offered a free data monitoring service to affected customers. But as Christy Lung reports, an IT expert has reminded people to stay alert if they choose to provide personal data for that service.
Cathay Pacific will offer a free data monitoring service to the 9.4 million affected customers for a year. A third-party vendor will check whether the compromised data becomes available on public websites, chat rooms, or non-public networks such as dark websites. Users can choose what information to be provided for testing. Still, experts are telling people to stay alert.
If you're doing the surveillance services, try to only test for some very simple information. For example, just test your email address.
He added, users may risk a second round of leakage if too much sensitive data, such as credit card numbers, are given to the vendor for testing. Despite the massive breach and late notification, the airline faces no penalty from authorities. That's because the Personal Data Privacy Ordinance enacted in 1996 doesn't require the company to notify the authorities once it has become aware of any data leakage. Back in 2007, the Privacy Commissioner for Personal Data proposed an amendment to the ordinance, which required mandatory notification. However, it was rejected by the government, which preferred an arrangement on a voluntary basis. Chief Secretary Matthew Cheung says the government will jointly review the ordinance and existing penalties with the privacy watchdog. This to enhance data protection and the notification arrangements when it comes to data leakage. Christy Lung, TVB News.
Still to come on tonight's news. We take a look at some of those who received Hong Kong's top honors. U.S. Defense Secretary says Jamal Khashoggi murder undermines regional stability.
"大師，你輩份咁高，何解喺度跳手指舞呢？
睇落就係跳舞，但係實際上我係同手指熱身，咁我就可以更加靈活運用發興全新論證網站嘅互動畫圖功能。
發興全新論證網站嘅互動畫圖功能？
冇錯啦，網站有唔同嘅畫圖工具，波動市況可以助你量度股價潛在升跌幅。
聽講個圖可以 save 低 send 俾朋友喎。
冇錯啦，畫完之後仲可以 send 俾親朋好友，分享睇法，集思廣益。所以話發興網係我呢個大師
同我呢個大師必備嘅投資網站。
And welcome back. The government held its honors and awards presentation today. More than 280 people were recognized this year. Among them was the first foreign national to be recognized for work outside of Hong Kong. Our Haley Zhou has details.
Hosted by Chief Executive Carrie Lam, the ceremony took place at Government House. This year, the Grand Bohemia Medal, the highest honor, was awarded to 4 individuals.
Grand Bohemia Medal.
Justice Robert Tang, a permanent judge of the Court of Final Appeal. Zhang Hokmin, a former member of the Executive Council as well as the Legislative Council who contributed to the city's rural development. Robin Chan, Asia Financial Holdings chairman and the father of Exco convener Bernard Chan. And medical professor Rosie Young. She was a professor at the University of Hong Kong for more than 40 years and has done extensive research in endocrinology.
袁國勇教授
10 others received the Gold Bohemia Star, including renowned microbiologist Yun Guogyang, Permanent Secretary for Development Hon Chi-kyung, and Ocean Park Corporation Chairman Kong Lin-cheng. As many as 20 were awarded the Silver Bohemia Star, including pro-establishment lawmaker Ann Jung and the chairman of the Federation of Hong Kong Industries, Jimmy Kwok.
Medal for bravery, silver.
In addition, 4 firefighters, Lee Pak-kyung, Wong Soi-ki, Ren So, and So Ga-chung were awarded the Silver Medal for bravery. They endured heavy rain and strong winds and rescued 2 stranded hikers on Kowloon Peak in Mao Shan Country Park during Typhoon Pakhar last year. Among those honored with the Bronze Medal for bravery was Zachary Brian Wolfe. He's an Australian police officer who rescued a Hong Kong citizen who was washed away by heavy floodwaters in Australia in 2016. This is the first time a foreign national is cited for a bravery medal for work outside the city.
It's a great honour, definitely unexpected. I was just doing my job, but definitely feel honoured to be here today.
The Grand Bohemia Awards were introduced in 1997. Haley Zhou, TVB News.
Still not clear whether Super Typhoon Yutu will affect Hong Kong next week. As of 4 o'clock this afternoon, Yutu was centered 1,300 kilometers east-northeast of Manila. Caleb Leung has details.
Another super typhoon may be coming to town. Literally meaning Jade Rabbit in Chinese, Yutu is forecast to move west at about 25 kilometers per hour across the western North Pacific in the general direction of the seas east of Luzon. There is some chance that Yutu may come close to us, but the observatory says it's still too early to tell.
May turn northeastward before entering the South China Sea. But even if it enters South China Sea, it will interact with the replenishment of the northeast monsoon, which is the cooler and drier air, and Yutu will weaken.
Still, the Jade Rabbit dealt a severe blow to the U.S. island of Saipan, affecting Hong Kong flights. Hong Kong Airlines has cancelled all flights from Hong Kong to the island from tomorrow to next Thursday. HK Express also cancelled all flights from Hong Kong to Saipan for today and tomorrow. The Travel Industry Council says there are currently no Hong Kong tour groups on the island. The Immigration Department says it's keeping a close eye on the situation in Saipan. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
As we mentioned, Super Typhoon Yutu left a trail of destruction on a chain of U.S. islands in the Pacific called the Northern Mariana Islands. Yutu slammed the islands of Tinian and Saipan early on Thursday with powerful winds that registered 290 kilometers per hour. On the island of Saipan, residents are digging through crumbled homes, smashed up cars, and fallen utility poles. 2 days after the storm, and the island's 50,000 residents are still struggling without power. One woman was killed when she took shelter in a building that collapsed. Yutu now ranks as the strongest storm to hit the U.S. this year.
U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis says the killing of Jamal Khashoggi undermines regional stability in the Middle East. Mattis made the comment today in a speech in Bahrain and warned Washington would take additional measures against those responsible. Tony Sabine reports.
U.S. Defense Chief Jim Mattis was one of the key speakers at the Manama Dialogue, an annual international security conference organised by Bahrain and the International Institute for Strategic Studies. While Mattis never mentioned Saudi Arabia directly, in connection with the murder of Jamal Khashoggi at the kingdom's consulate in Istanbul, he did say Washington was worried the killing would affect regional stability.
The United States does not tolerate this kind of ruthless action to silence Mr. Khashoggi, a journalist, through violence. Failure of any one nation to adhere to international norms and the rule of law undermines regional stability at a time when it is needed most. As President Trump noted, we're going to get to the bottom of it.
And he promised the United States would not let the culprits off the hook.
Due to the gravity of this situation, I will continue consulting with our President and Secretary of State as they consider the implications of this incident within our broader strategic framework. We will maintain our twin imperatives: as stated by Secretary of State Pompeo, of protecting America and our interests and holding accountable those responsible for this murder.
Still, Mattis also sounded a note of realism, acknowledging the strategic importance of good relations with America's allies in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia.
The United States' shared security interests with our Arab and Israeli partners in this region remain, and our respect for the Saudi people is undiminished.
Tony Sabine, TVB News.
And that is a